I have an amazing now friend to introduce you to. This is my friend Lara. Lara is here with her son Nico, and they traveled very far to come here from Greece. And their story is just unbelievable. It's truly an unbelievable story. And I'm really gonna let you get into it. But what's interesting to me is I always ask people, how on earth did you find deeper healing? And she had quite a journey to even get here. So I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you. How did I end up here? By searching, we find, isn't that what they say? It's been a very long road. I have searched everywhere to help my son. I've been all over the world. We've lived in England, we've lived in Canada, we've lived in the US. I began seeing that something was off with him since he was really a baby, but also knowing that there was an intact human being behind it all. So I didn't accept a lot of what doctors would do as what I called it now guesswork, because they didn't really know. Yeah, as I said, it's been a very long journey of trying this, trying that. One symptom stopped, another one started.
Let's bring them up to speed. So her son is Nico. He's 22 years old. And first of all, he's absolutely such a beautiful person. He's young, he's handsome, and he's had a very long road. And when we started talking, I did Laura's onboarding. She was starting to connect the dots because another doctor had actually said to her, I think there's something bigger going on here.
Yeah.
But when you said, I noticed it as a baby, like that's wow. Okay, so
Oh, I have two children, okay? So one of them, Nico, there was always something. The other one was like sailing through life, no issues, no problems. With Nicholas, he was always sick with something, or there was this constant anxiety, even if nothing was going on. And that really was very fascinating to me, that, we would be, it was this high grade anxiety happening with him the whole time. So then when something like I had to leave to go to the grocery store or to do something else, he would get completely crazy. No, don't leave. The reactions were so out of proportion. And we thought all of this is psychological, it's emotional. We went to therapy. Then we started going to school. School wasn't happening. His level of brain fog and lack of concentration was to the point where the teachers were like, we think he's brain damaged. And I was like, I don't think so, because when he is concentrated, he's extremely capable, and he's a very, very intelligent human being. So to cut a very long story shorter for the purposes of today, after I've been to so many places, and my personal journey has been quite fascinating because of him. 5 years ago, I met this doctor in a ketamine-assisted psychotherapy workshop, 5-day training in San Francisco, and I met this medical doctor who was also a therapist with ketamine, but she and I became friends, and we started chatting and all that. And she works with people who are highly sensitive. And this must be 3 months ago, not that long ago, I saw a post she put on Instagram it was a webinar about highly sensitive people's medical care. So I texted her and I said, look, can I talk to you about my son? This has been going on. I had never spoken to her about it, so I did. And she says to me, send me every lab test. Oh, just a parenthesis, we've been to tons of functional medicine doctors, integrative doctors in Canada, in London, in everywhere. They've ordered all kinds of tests that were beautiful tests, but there wasn't really anything I could understand that was really going on. They were like, take zinc and take this and take that. No, okay.
A lot of tinctures, supplements,
yes,
things like that, or therapy.
Yes, we have this and this. I can see that, but there was no something. I couldn't understand what was going on.
I hear that a lot. They'll say, I have a lot of labs and I have a lot of supplements, but I don't really have a treatment plan, and I don't actually know what's happening.
Exactly.
What's really
and so
happening.
Dr. Wally put it very well. She said, so when I sent her, she asked me to send every test that had been done on him since day one. She said, send me everything. And I said, okay. So I dug everything. I had a file on my computer with all his tests. I sent everything, and as with time difference and all that, I was asleep. She leaves me a message. I still have it on my WhatsApp, and she's a voice message, and she says, "Lara, have you, while you were pregnant, or maybe later, or him even later, been near mold or in a mold or in a water damaged building? Because all of this points to mold toxicity." And I'm like, what? I've never heard of this before. So I called her back and I said, what do you mean and all that? She said, I see a lot of tests here that are skirting around the issue. I can't say for 100% because I need a mycotoxin test, but this is all symptoms of a human being affected by mold, and quite seriously. So now sometimes in life we kind of block things that are traumatic, we can't connect the dots. And then I'm beginning to realize that, oh my God, when Nicholas was born, we were living in an apartment in London that was above a basement that was abandoned since 1973. And everything in there was moldy. Everything, the floors, the ceilings, the doors, everything. It was just the most disgusting situation. And we were trying, while I was pregnant, and then when he was a baby, we were trying to evict. She wasn't living there, but the person there, we were trying to take the apartment away from her and have it cleaned and all that. Anyway, but the damage was done.
And here, so this isn't even your apartment.
No.
This is, I'm living in an apartment with a really moldy apartment below me.
That had
Most
no
people wouldn't even
insulation.
know that.
There was no insulation on the floor. There were cracks between the floorboards, and all the
Spores are
mycotoxins were
coming
coming
right
out.
up. Yeah.
My ex-husband, Nicholas's father, said to me a couple of weeks ago, he used to take Nicholas in his arms and go down there and clean up a little bit.
Oh, geez.
He said, I didn't know. He said, now, with what we know now, we would be going down there with a special suit, whatever it's called. Anyway, so she told me, so Dr. Wally tells me that. She says, please do a test on him. And I'm like, I start reading and thinking, wow, all of these symptoms he has been complaining are real. I'm completely stunned. I'm waking up from a trance that I didn't know I was in.
What a great way to say it. What a great way to say it. Waking up from a trance I didn't know I was in. How many parents feel that?
Yeah.
That is, when you wake up, it's, wait a minute, what is happening?
I'm beginning to search, obviously, Dr. Google. I'm beginning to search symptoms that I've seen in him with mold toxicity. Everything fits. I'm starting to read about immunosuppression, about the cell danger response, about everything in the world. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I felt so terrible. My son was telling me all these weird symptoms. And of course, most people that have mold, they've been told they're hypochondriacs because they have 37 symptoms a day, and so was he. He kept saying to me, I think I have rabies. Something's crawling on me. My blood is dirty. I said, all kinds of... And I was like, Nicholas, no. Because we did other tests, his blood tests were fine. But I could see a child that was suffering, that was tired all the time, could not follow school, and yet there's this brilliant mind. So anyway, he was given ADHD medication. That made him worse, although a little bit more productive. I was very against it. They started telling me he has maybe autism, maybe neurodevelopmental delays, maybe bipolar, maybe schizoaffective. I mean, I've heard it all. I've been to every psychiatrist in the world. They were all saying whatever, trying to give him medications that I didn't accept him taking because I knew that there was something that was covering this human being that we couldn't understand, because underneath it all was an intact, beautiful being that there was nothing wrong with him except he was. He used to say to me, I think I'm possessed with something.
I remember you saying
Yeah.
that when we talked on the
Yeah.
phone. You had even said, I think you told me he was like 2, and you said, he told you I'm bad.
Yes, he did.
And you were like, no, you're not bad. But he knew, even young, something was really wrong. And then as he was growing older, he would say to you, there's something really wrong.
Yeah, he would. And he'd say to me, I have this feeling something wants to kill me. I read the other day, very interesting, Dr. Jill Christa, who is a mold doctor, she explains that mold wants us dead so it can compost us. that is the, it's true. That is the job of mold, is to compost.
I love that.
Yeah, and she
I
says
love
that ochratoxin and blah, 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 they make us really tired and idle, so it can do the job of composting us.
I'm just all of a sudden I'm having the visual of the runaway TV show that is the fungus
Yeah.
that is taking over
It's
all the
trying to
people
eat
and
you.
making them zombies and then literally compost them. Oh my God, it's like priming. Oh, what is that show? Oh my gosh. Oh, The Last of Us. The Last of Us.
Oh, really? I'll have a
Yes,
look.
it's all about fungus taking over people. So I'm sure there's a lot of people that know that show. But it's funny that you say that because I never thought about it like that. But it's
Yeah.
absolutely
So
true.
I belong in a. So how did I find you now? So then Dr. Wally says, start him on cholestyramine, on this, on that. Nicholas was in Mexico. It was a very complicated situation. They thought he was crazy there. They wanted to lock him up. I was like, no, wait a minute. I think I know what's going on. Anyway, it was before Christmas. I couldn't leave my other son. It was a bit of a mess. I write him a letter where he was, and I said, Nicholas, hold on. This is what's going on. I think I found it. I don't know how much he understood, because one of the biggest, saddest things with this is that your brain doesn't work. And his poor brain, as brilliant as it is, has been so offline, and you can get such little information in him at the time that I was like, I tried to write this letter very concise. He did get it. He said to me, I read your letter. But he was like, even the idea that he's been affected and infected by mold is traumatizing to him. He's been extremely cooperative here. But anyway, how I found this place was that I was like, I need this sorted now. I got into Facebook. There's some extraordinary. That's another thing that stunned me, is that I go to Facebook. I look at a group called toxicity and support, whatever. 68,000 people. There's another group.
Oh, it's an epidemic. It's a massive epidemic.
25,000 people.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So I become members of that, and I began to read posts, and I begin to search, and I'm like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. I read every research paper in the world. There are 65,000 research papers on mold, and still the CDC or FDA, whatever you call it in this country, is like, yeah, we know, but not sure. I don't. I send some information to our family doctor, and he says to me, because he knows him very well, he says, the relationship seems to be valid. The mechanism doesn't make sense to me. And I'm like, talk to you later. I'm not having this. This is ridiculous. This is my kid's life. So then I'm thinking, I want an inpatient place. I want things to be done quicker, because people are saying that it takes a year to 2 years to clear up. And I thought, I have no time. This kid is not going to survive. There's been a lot of other problems that I don't want to mention here. And I thought, his life is at stake here. The mold is actually killing him by
Hijacking his brain.
hijacking his brain.
Yeah, literally.
Exactly.
His brain
And
is
hijacking his life. The kid doesn't have a
hijacking
life.
his life.
He's completely confused. He doesn't know how the world works, everything. And I found one place in Mexico. I thought, I don't want to be in Mexico. I spoke to them, didn't like them. And then I found this place, some other place in America. We mustn't really name them. And then I found this place, and then I was relentless. I read everything about you, everything about where you went to school, what toothbrush do you use.
I have to say,
No, I'm joking.
I have to say, though, I got to honor you for a second. So, because I talked to all these moms, a lot of them are moms. Some dads call too, but a lot of them are the moms, and the moms who are like, really like, you did the things that matter. You were saying, this doesn't feel right. You're using your mother intuition when they were saying he's schizophrenic, or he needs to be on these amphetamines, or he needs whatever the things were. You were using your discernment to say, no, this is not right. And you kept persisting because you knew you hadn't found it yet.
I also want to interrupt you
That's
here very
huge.
quickly. Some very good doctors who didn't know what was wrong, and I have to credit, especially there was one functional doctor psychiatrist who left the Western paradigm and moved into integrative medicine. He said to me, his symptoms are atypical of anything I know.
That's good, because that makes you go, okay, that means, he's outside of the norms. What am I looking for here? I mean, I love when doctors do that, when they're like, I don't know, this doesn't fit. Then at least it leaves that door of curiosity for the patient or for the parent to say, wait, I might be missing something. So I always say it's the never giving up. That's like huge. And keep looking. I can't even tell you how many people have found us. You came in from a doctor referral, but so many people come in from Facebook groups.
Yeah.
They literally are like, has anyone recovered? And they'll say, I saw a bunch of people recovered at Deeper Healing, so that made me look at your website. And then I did what you did. They stalk the reviews and the people, and they try to find those people to see if those people are real, and the whole thing that people do. When you're trying to figure out if something is legitimate. The other thing is, I get a lot of people that say they finally figured out that they might have mold, and they'll get, oh, we might be able to clear that in a year from now. And when they see how much faster we can do things intensively, they're like, what's my time worth? What's my life worth? For him, for your son, he's lost 22 years.
Yeah.
What is that worth? There is no number. There is no number. He wants to get back to a life. He wants his brain back. He's this beautiful young person. And the one thing I will say about the young kids, man, do they bounce back. They have youth on their side. You'll see their skin, you'll see their face, you'll see their mind, their eyes get, so many of them come in with the dead eyes, and then you'll see their eyes are changing, and you're like, oh, they're coming back. Their brain's starting to work, their eyes are getting the twinkle, their skin is clearing up. We've had kids come in with like full body rashes. And that's nice when you can see it externally, but a lot of people don't have a rash, and you just start to notice. And I always say the parents or the support people notice it first. They'll be like, oh, I'm really starting to see it. But he's an extreme case because it's very rare that we've ever had a kid that had his exposure from birth.
And from before.
And so severely.
From before.
Yeah, even in
What
the
happens
pregnancy.
when this-
That's very unusual. And then to have it undiscovered until he's 22 years old. So we're not even going to know what his actual brain looks like.
We don't.
Because it's like we have to get it from, obviously we've detoxed him and he's getting detoxed intensively. But then there's his brain hasn't ever even not been full of toxins in his entire life yet.
And there's also a lot of layers to this. Like, for example,
yeah.
he's been saying, do I have this? Do I have that? Like he was saying to me, I have autism, and you don't want to accept it. I said, I've taken you to 3 doctors. You don't meet clinical criteria for autism. And it's fine.
Or any child.
He wanted to put a name to what was wrong with him. So he would bring up all these things. And then he'd say to me, maybe I'm just a bad person. Because one of the problems with mold is that the emotions are so extreme. He couldn't say to me, please don't do this. Sometimes he would hit me. Or he'd say, you this, you that. I was like, okay. So for years he'd do that. He would completely red mist, he used to call it. He would be overcome by this anger and rage. And then you'd see him feel so bad. And then as he was growing, he stopped feeling bad because he was so defensive about it. And he became...
And mold rage is real. Mold rage is real. And if you're not sure, Google that.
We used to call him Jekyll and Hyde because he's very kind and loving. And then suddenly there was this demon that would come out of him. He's lost that. There isn't any of this now. I told his father yesterday, I sent him a message, and I said, I think the darkness is gone from inside him. Because he used to get really dark. And I think it's the mycotoxins. He used to get really like Nicholas. I don't see that anymore. He'll say jokes, and he watches crap on TV that can be quite...
How many, I just have to say this because I'm thinking about, there's so many groups out there that talk about their raging children. There's a lot of parents who are suffering under scary, raging children.
Yes.
And they'll rage, and then the kids will collapse and they'll cry and they'll say, I'm so bad. And the parents do not know, they do not know that their children's brains have been hijacked by toxins. So many. A lot of them are doing what's normally recommended, which is medications, which is therapy. But if it is the case that their brains have been hijacked by toxins, whether it is mycotoxins or metals or glyphosate or hundreds of others, combination of all of the above, they're not going to see results because they're going down the wrong path. So I'm just saying that out loud because I've seen the numbers of people that are dealing with this, and it's so powerful to have a mom who's on the other side of it say, and that's gone now. I just want to point out, he's been here for weeks. He's been here for weeks. This is a 20-year journey. So this is not something that when you find the right thing, it doesn't have to be in 3 years you'll see a change. In a year you'll see a change, especially with young people. Young people, you give the body opportunity, their bodies are amazing. They're just incredible healing machines. Okay, sorry, I just had to say that.
It's okay.
It's
No,
so
and I want to
important.
point out, because it's interesting that we're doing this, because this is also something I would have liked to hear somebody
Yes.
tell me. So if
Gosh.
someone's listening to this, there's a
Yes.
huge emotional component to this.
It's huge.
So there you have a child that's raging, that's never sleeping, that's anxious, that's this, that's that. And your relationship with that child is very difficult. And the child feels he's bad because the mother, the father, they can feel are struggling with him.
And we can't not say also the cultural guilt that it's put on the parents with a raging child because they all blame the parents.
Yep.
Why can't you control your child? I've seen it. I've seen it. And so what ends up happening with these families is they isolate because they don't want to deal with the fallout at a restaurant, at the food store, at the whatever. And I know there's some parent who's going to hear this, and that is so hard. I'm just like putting it out there. And there is a way out of this. And definitely want to check your kids' toxin levels. If this is resonating with you, I beg you to look into this. All right, sorry.
100%. No, I mean, I have
I mean,
to
this
say,
is the power of what we're saying.
We've been here 4 weeks. My son used to rage about 3 times a day at least. He snapped at me, half snapped at me twice in the last 4 weeks. And the first time I was like, okay, also I know it's this and I don't continue. The second time, which was 4 days ago, because he wanted something, I don't know, can't remember what it was. I didn't say anything. He snapped. And he looks at me and he goes, that was pretty mean, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Which is quite, because when you're in that fog of the mycotoxins, you don't really have time to look at how you've upset your mother or whatever. But this is such an important point to make, that you develop with that other person this very toxic relationship.
yes.
Because of the mycotoxins, because of whatever's going on with them. And you feel so lost and alone. And you think, you go to psychologists, psychotherapists, shamans, whatever in the world, and nothing really works. And you're desperate and you think, something wrong with me, something wrong with my child. Maybe we don't like each other. Maybe we should live apart. Maybe we should never. At some point, I thought I will never see my son again. He said to me, you are the worst person ever. You've done this, that, the other. I'm sure he doesn't feel that way right now. I'm 100% sure. Everything gets compounded
Yes.
when you're so sick with his toxins.
Yes.
That little time where I could have gotten angry with him because he was late for the school bus became this big thing that he wanted to kill me for. And it happens out there. I see people, when people tell me stories about their children, I'm like, please, can you have a test, a toxin test? I also want to talk about drug addiction. It's a huge issue out there, as we know. It doesn't happen only because there's trauma in the family or because they've got bad friends, or there is a reason why a person begins to try to change their way of being, because they're not feeling right, because they're angry, because, also is because they have inflammation, and inflammation is caused by toxins, and they're trying to fix themselves and medicate themselves and all that. So if you have people in your world that are addicted to drugs, first thing that needs to be done is to test for toxins.
You know, it was something I thought was very interesting, and I'm going to remind you that you said this. You had said that he said to you when he was young and he started experimenting with drugs, he said, Mom, a lot of people do drugs to numb themselves, but I always feel numb and I'm doing it to feel.
Yeah.
And by using recreational drugs and honestly, prescription drugs, because there was lots of doctors prescribing drugs, which then led to other things. We're not even going to go down that topic at the moment, but he said that was how he could feel more human. He started to actually be able to feel, and so he liked that. He's very open when he talks about it, and he's very interesting to talk to in depth. I swear, I feel like maybe this is going to be his journey.
He said to me yesterday, I want to be
you
a
know-
health coach. But we have a long road, and I
No,
think
I'm
one
gonna
of the
put that
things that
on him.
people need to understand is the way I see it now is that you have to heal the toxins and remove them from your body, but also you have to deal with the damage they've caused, and they've caused damage to him, especially in his brain. Okay, his organs were taking care of everything, but he needs to relearn what it's like to be in this world.
Yeah, it's starting from
He
scratch.
still asks me questions that a very small child will ask, and I used to get very frustrated, and I used to think that he's joking with me or trying to get a rise out of me. It's true that he doesn't know certain things because his brain wasn't really on board, and now I say, oh, it's because of that. Oh, I see.
And we'll see children come in with OCD or with, we see a lot of neurological tics, OCD, learning differences. And when we get down to it, it is toxin related. I say Brain on Fire. The Brain on Fire
Yes.
book really elevated that conversation nationally, where parents were starting to like go, wait a minute, is this what's going on? We are very quick in our country and maybe internationally. I'm not as familiar with Greece.
No, there isn't,
But
and in
it's-
England there's very little.
They turn quickly to, here's this, they always get the number one pain point, whatever that is, and they'll say, what's the medication to fix that pain point? From the body's perspective, drugs are just a thing that's made in a lab. It's a chemical that's put together in a lab that's patented. From the body's perspective, that's another toxin. That's just another thing to process. That's not natural. Chewing on a leaf is not the same as taking a patented chemical from a lab. So it's another thing to process. And that doesn't mean all medications are bad. It just means for someone with very high toxin levels, who's already highly sensitive, when someone says to me they're very sensitive to light, to sounds, to smells, I'm like, ding ding, high chemical level, high toxin level. It's a sign to me, like, okay, that's really important that you've noticed that about them. So I'm just trying to give little tidbits for the general public, like, how could you suspect that might be going on?
I like what Dr. B said to us. It's not one thing. We have also in this culture, we have this obsession with finding the one culprit. There isn't one.
Yeah.
There is many. And one thing that I love that I've discovered recently is the work of Dr. Robert Naviaux that I sent you the other day, where he talks about the new kind of medicine that we need to adopt now, which is based on his theory of the cell danger response. And our cells react like human beings. When you scare them and invade them with environmental toxins, chemicals, physical abuse, emotional abuse, societal fear, they go like this. And what they do is, instead of producing energy, so looking towards life, they shut down and they become non-functioning. And this is it's a microcosm of what us as human beings do. We do the same thing. If you hurt me, I will go like this. I won't be open to you. I won't be open to the life that we can have. So the cells are the same. When mycotoxins go in, emotional trauma, metals, whatever is going on out there, prescription medications, vaccines,
Everything that's being pushed
everything
in.
that's pushed down, it could set up it. What Dr. Naviaux says is that it rings the same bell. It's the cell danger response. The cells go, we got to protect ourselves. When an organ is in the process of protecting itself, it's not living.
And that's why Dr. B says all the time, it's always about everything. It's not
Yes.
to be overwhelming, it's more just to be aware.
Yeah.
I want to get back to brass tacks for parents out there. If you had a minute, 2 minutes to talk to a parent who's got a young child experiencing some of the things you're experiencing, what would you say to them?
Okay, I think first of all, the first thing I would say is ask your instinct of what is it within what you feel is, and there's no normal in this culture, as Gabor Mate says, it's a myth, but we know as mothers, if something has gone off its correct trajectory, something's coming off.
Especially with mold, yours is a really weird case because yours was his whole life. Most people that we see are a family that have had an exposure, and
Right.
one of the children, or child and dad or child and mom, like two people in the family may be really sick and the others are not. Or we see a lot of kids moving to college, moving to their own first apartment, which are usually cheap and cruddy, and they get sick. And the parents are like, and they'll go, wait, this isn't my kid. But then they're like, wait, is this because of like school stress? Like you start to do the whole thing of, is it just the phase of life, the rebelliousness, and sometimes it's really hard to unpeel. Is this something bigger? But they can see the change. Yours is hard because you never saw that dramatic change.
No,
He was always
I did see points like
better,
points
worse.
of, yes, he was living in
Okay.
mold in England 3 years ago. I thought I was going to lose him. He was completely out of it.
Wow.
And other places. I did see him being very sick in some different stages of his life. And now I can relate it to
You
him.
can say, okay, and of course, if the body is already in, has mycotoxin illness, and then you go into a very moldy environment, or you're cleaned up and then you go into a moldy environment, the body's job is to tell you there's a problem. So that's why the things will fester, whether it's the rash or the whatever. Everyone's symptom list can look really different. If you look up mycotoxin illness symptoms, it's 37 things.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, because people's symptoms can be really different. Like yours might be different than mine, and we could be roommates in the same apartment. So that's very confusing to people because they're like, obviously,
we need to
that's
clarify
not related.
why this is the case.
Yeah.
That 1 in 4 people have an altered gene that doesn't allow them to detox. Most of us detox toxins because otherwise we'd be dead, all of us. But 1 in 4 people have a gene, an alteration gene that can be tested. I think it's called the HLR something, remember the exact name, but you can put the notes because it's an interesting test to do. And that tells you if you are susceptible to mold and all kinds of other things, because it means that your body does not have the capacity to detox and it stays in your body for decades. Dr. Wally, who first told me that Nicholas may have mold, she said if he had mold and he can't detox, it can stay in your body for decades. And I was like, what? So a lot of people ask me, how come you didn't get sick? And I'm like, I don't have that gene alteration. So if you think that 25% of the population could be sick with some sort of toxin.
I forget the numbers. I think it's 50% of buildings, and this might be US statistics, 50% of buildings
100 million.
are toxic, and 25% of the population is highly sensitive. So you just run those basic numbers, and it's, whew. I laughingly say we should all be living in teepees, but that's a side note. But let me
continue this. So the first thing I would tell a parent is to sit down with their kid and never doubt what they're saying. Never ever tell them that they are making it up, that they're trying to get attention. Get curious. They're asking for help.
Get curious. Oh, I love that. I just love that.
They're telling you they're not well. Whatever, it may sound crazy, like they may say to you, Mickey Mouse came on my room last night. He did say that to me. He had nightmares. This is the other thing. They have terrible nightmares, kids, because when you have this cell danger response alarm bell, basically your body and your psyche knows that you're in danger.
Something's wrong.
And it makes up movies and dreams
Yes.
and situations to justify this.
Yeah.
So he would have these most unbelievable dreams. But anyway, to come back to this, And then I think the first thing I would do today, if I could turn back time, was to test him for metals and mycotoxins immediately. Do the right thing, make the right conditions for it with the glutathione, so if possible. So you make sure that the urine has the mycotoxins so they can be detected.
So what's crazy is you actually got all your results this week.
Yesterday.
Yeah, so
Yes,
normally,
and we were like, oh my God, of
yeah,
course.
normally we have all the results in before
Before.
arrival, and they had a situation where they were traveling in from great distance, and the timing was what it was. They actually got all their results this week, and so now they have, that's one of the things that I think deeper healing does really well, is really making sure every stone has been unturned. What is the full onion for this person? I always say it's an onion that's just it gets unpeeled. And then how do we reverse it in a way that doesn't crash and burn them? And talking about genetic SNPs, and part of it is having all the pathways open. When people say all the time, how am I going to get any result in weeks? It sounds impossible. It literally sounds impossible, especially when you're like, I've been dealing with this for 2 decades, which a lot of people have been. And I want to tell you, it is absolutely possible to do an intensive safely and move the needle really fast. It doesn't mean you're done. I think a wellness journey is a lifetime. It's a lifetime of compounded decisions that we are all in control of. And while their kids are little, that we're in control of. Nico is such a beautiful young man. I am excited. I am so excited to see where his journey's going. And there's a lot of people watching his case internationally. And one of them is Dr. Gabor Mate, who I'm a huge fan of. I feel like he has truly elevated the conversation about emotion causing disease. If you're not familiar with his work, there's a lot of podcasts and his book, The Myth of Normal, was like mind blowing to me.
We also have a beautiful event happening next October in Greece. So please come and
Yes.
join us.
And Lara's hosting an event with him in Greece, which is amazing. But I feel like part of what he's doing with the emotional part of disease is what deeper healing is trying to do with environmental toxicity. Grossly missed all over the place, all over the world, by practitioners and hospitals and families as well. People are waking up, but even as they wake up to it, they're not sure what to do about it, and it's very hard to get honest guidance. Deeper Healing is 100% here to have those conversations, help families figure it out, and help them heal their bodies.
And yeah, I always come back to the emotional component. Also for a parent and a relative to know what's going on changes everything. When you see somebody struggling and you think they're doing it because they're being difficult or because they're having a bad day, and you just think, oh, leave me alone. But when you know that there is a substantial irritant there that is causing them incredible distress, and if you're a parent, you begin to forgive your child for being so difficult, and you're beginning finally, for the first time ever, to help them, because you said earlier you've done everything. No, I haven't done everything. I've done everything I thought.
That you
I wasn't doing what
right.
needed to be done because I didn't know.
Of course. And
So
that's what I find
until
with
you
most
know,
people. Yes.
you're kind of looking in the dark. But the moment you realize that, yeah, this is mycotoxins, this is metals, this is whatever toxin it is, and it can be treated, you're on a different path. You're on a completely different path.
I have to say, I experienced that myself when Marty was very sick. You're talking about being a parent, and mine was being a wife. I thought for years he had mental problems because his personality was totally different, and his anxiety and his negativity, and also his brain fog. It was like we weren't. It just was not. There was no. It wasn't the sync that it was when we started our marriage. I didn't realize for years that he was sick. I thought there was just something wrong with him. When you think there's something wrong with your partner's mind, you end up arguing with them all the time. And you're like, what's wrong with you? And they're like, I don't know. They're like, or they're fighting back, or they get defensive. Same with a child. If you're like pulling your hair out, what's wrong with my kid? And they're like, they're raging, and then they're on the floor crying, and
Yeah.
then they're like, I'm bad, and you don't know whether to hug them or like just throw them out the window. Like you
Right,
literally don't
right,
know what
right.
to do. I think that's everybody. But when you actually know, oh, their brain's been hijacked, then you know you're not bad. We're going to help you through this. We're going to figure this out. We know your brain, you find the words that are
For me,
compassionate, and
finding,
it's changing, it
yeah.
changes everything.
When I found that there's a thing called mold rage, I watched this movie by Dave
Mold rage.
Asprey called Moldy, the movie. He produced a movie. Dave Asprey, he had mold when he was a child and for a long time. And anyway, he's very passionate about this subject. And he produced a movie called Moldy. Watch it. It's free online. And I mean, it's old, but it's got a lot of information. And I think Daniel Amen says at some point something about mold rage. And I'm like, mold rage? Such a thing exists called mold rage? And he talks about it and he says, the person is not a bad person. It's not a moral issue. They're sick. And I remember where I heard this. I remember exactly where I was like, oh my God, thank you. Because the level of rage that we have seen in him was so out of character that I was like, what is this?
And now you see your beautiful boy again. There he is.
Now he says, every night he says, good night, I love you, instead of good night, fuck you. I'm sorry. No, it's true.
It's so true.
He said,
That's giving people hope. Okay, so we didn't do a lot of talk. We talked a lot about the case, but what we didn't talk a lot about, which is very important for these people, for everybody, is deeper healing real? This is the number one question that people ask.
we're here.
Yeah. But they don't know that. This just looks like an office building. What would you, tell them your experience of what deeper healing is for someone who's far away. I can only imagine how hard it was for you in Switzerland. Is this place real or not?
It looks very real because of the photos and because of what I saw on Facebook and the people and all that. For me, it had enough on paper from a distance
Try it.
for me to say, I'm going to trust this. I spoke to you.
Yeah.
Understanding these very deeper feelings about this situation and having this resonant conversation that we had was very helpful. I thought to myself, I'm taking the risk, even if it's a scam. It's okay, I'll turn back, it's worth it. But I knew, I saw people, photos and faces, and spoke to Christy in reception, your card's not going through, and things like that. So I spoke to Dr. B.
You know what? I wish we had a photo of his day one. You know,
I
people
think I
hate
have.
it. Oh, okay.
I think I have.
And actually, we're going to drop some of the photos with your permission of of just some of the things we talked about today,
We have
like
to
the
ask
moldy apartment.
Yeah.
The other thing that we didn't talk about, which we can edit in, is at 10, he was put into the ICU with brain inflammation that was mysterious.
Yes, and they did a lumbar puncture, poor kid. They thought he had intracranial. So all the symptoms he had, very low vitamin D, very low iron, anemia, twitches, all kinds of things like that. They were sent us to the neurologist, then they sent us there, then an MRI, then a this, then a that. It was just non-stop. And I was like, guys, what's wrong? And they were like, it's okay, maybe it's developmental. What does that mean? Poor kid was like, why am I here? I didn't know what to say. I was worried out of my mind. Now I'm putting the whole picture together. Yeah, he had mycotoxins and his organs were going, eeyo. And then there was all kinds of, he'd call me from school. The teachers would call me from school and they'd say, come and pick him up. He's in a really bad mood. I'd go to the school. What's wrong, Nicholas? My tummy really hurt. There was something all the time, but there was nothing really on paper that we could say, you have this.
Yeah.
And everybody was telling us, he'll grow off. He's trying to get
And you
attention.
feel so lost.
He's so difficult, Nicholas. He's just this. That. And I think he's difficult because he's been so ill.
And to close this up, I just want to take a moment and honor a long mom's journey and a long journey for Nico. And this is the beginning. This is the beginning of a whole new life for him.
Yeah, and thank you very
And
much for receiving us.
I love you. I'm so happy that you never gave up on him.
Sometimes I would like.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
And just say real quick, for more information,
Okay. For more information, go to deeperhealing.com, and you can always get on the phone and talk to one of our very knowledgeable callers that are very familiar with these types of cases.